Hey guys, I know a lot of you watch my channel because you've got the itch and you're looking to make your next knife purchase, which I totally get because I'm also a knife guy. So I invite you to open the description of the video you're watching right now and click here on my Amazon store where I've compiled some of my very favorites. As you can see, my most recommended knives and my favorite budget knives are right at the top, but there's also categories like knife maintenance, pocket clips, knife storage and display, and then a whole bunch of knives by popular brands. There's something down here for everybody, so make sure you take a look. Thanks. What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to do with you guys. This is the QSP Knives Puffin. Didn't you already do the review on the Puffin? I did, but not this particular version. This version has thumb studs. The version that I reviewed, it was a long time ago. It had sort of a slot opening, which is normally a deployment mechanism or method or, you know, option, I guess, that I prefer. I love thumb studs, but I like the opening hole because it allows me to do the reverse flick. But as you can see here, I'm able to do that just fine on this one. The reason that I didn't like the other one so much is because the profile of this knife did not allow it to work with, you can see there's just not enough space for an opening hole. So I actually, in that video, I said this would be a lot better with thumb studs, and I honestly never expected this to happen. Apparently a lot of people thought that because they made a version of this with thumb studs, and it's super cool for a lot of reasons. We'll get into that real quick here if you've been enjoying my content for a while or you're brand new. Either way, I upload knife content daily, every single day. If that sounds good to you and you'd like to support me, you can find my Patreon link down in the description. You can get your hands on some cool stickers and gain access to the once-a-week Patreon exclusive video that I do every single week, like I said right there. Anyways, let's go ahead and get a measurement on this guy. QSP Puffin coming in at 7 inches, almost on the dot. It's like maybe a little bit over, 7.1, something like that. Blade length coming in at 3 inches, and cutting edge coming in at like 2.9 inches. Wonderful EDC size knife. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1. Rat 1 coming in at 8.6 inches overall. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? PM2 coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue coming in at 8 inches overall. And last but not least, the Spyderco Para 3. Para 3 coming in at 7.25 inches overall. You can see they're really, really close. In fact, it's interesting that I measure the Para 3 at 7.25. Let's measure them both again here, because this is like almost exactly the same. Yeah, they're 7.25. The Puffin's a little tiny bit smaller. It doesn't really end up making a difference in terms of ergonomic hand space on this knife, and we'll go over that. Let's go ahead and give you guys a demonstration of the action here. This knife is running on bearings, and it's just really nice. I love EDC knives that are thumb stud based and run on bearings. This particular one has a perfectly dialed in detent, and I can do the thumb flick, I can do the reverse flick. It's still, I mean, it's really, really good. It's not perfectly optimized, but let me say this. It's like if I were to grade it, like it was a high school test paper, I'd give it a 95 out of 100. I'm much happier with the thumb studs on this than I am with the slot. It was almost a useless slot on the other one. This is head and shoulders above that version, especially if you're just going to go for a standard thumb flick, right? If it had an absolutely perfect reverse flick position, and this is trivial because it's just my own preferences when it comes to fidget factor, I'd give it an A+. But in terms of this right here, like if you're going to deploy it like this, you're like, Complex, I don't care about that fancy stuff you do with the reverse finger, I'm just going to deploy it like this, then yeah, it's an A+. It's wonderful. I have no issues with that whatsoever. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. Get out my handy dandy WIA bit selector and WIA magnetic driver, 2 items that are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them down in the Amazon store that I referenced at the very beginning of the video. Just open up the store, look for the category called knife maintenance, and it should be in there along with a bunch of other things. And by the way, if I can find a link for this guy, I will include that as well. It kind of depends on when you're watching it. I'm gonna guess the body screws look to be T6, unfortunately. Let's go ahead and check here real quick. Body screws. There's T6. Yeah, and I'm guessing all those, they're all the same. This one too. T6. Yep. I don't like T6, but it's not a deal breaker. Wish they were all T8. I bet you the pivot is T8 though. That seems to be the case. Go ahead and give that a check here real quick. Non-show side. Yep, that's a T8. Okay, not the biggest problem in the world. The hardware is pretty minimal, so I can give it a pass for more than one reason. This knife was sent to me by the Apex Pass Run Group, by the way, so by extension, the manufacturer. I appreciate that. What else we need to do? Carry profile. So, as you can see here, this is not a cumbersome knife for a lot of reasons. Let's go ahead and check blade stock thickness. Love these new calipers. I've been saying it a lot. Whoops. I need to get used to that rolly thing, though. Blade stock thickness coming in at 120 thousandths. Gosh, these things are just so much more accurate. I really appreciate that. On the inside here, I don't believe we are looking at milled titanium. Oh, we are. They did some milling. I feel like the last one didn't have a lot of milling or any milling in it. They're pretty shallow pockets, but there's a little bit of milling in there. It's not a big knife, right? In terms of thickness, up against the Spyderco Para 3, you can see they're identical in terms of thickness. In terms of actual, like, overall carry profile and height, you can see there, it just 100%, it beats out the PM2 and Para 3, two knives that nobody ever complains about, and they're kind of awkward, in my opinion. But yeah, no issues there whatsoever. Nothing sticking out. There's no flipper tab. I mean, easy. It's just easy. Absolutely. Let's go ahead and weigh it. We're looking at titanium and carbon fiber. So I suppose there is another pocket on the other side. It's probably why the pockets are shallow on one side. There's a pocket to accept this carbon fiber inlay. So a little bit less there. 3.17, that's perfectly acceptable, right? A little over an ounce an inch on the blade. No big deal. That falls right in, preferable parameters. Jeez. For a lot of people, so no issues there. I'm trying to, these satin finish blades, I just get my fingerprints all over them, and it's such an eyesore while I'm trying to review these, but in use, it doesn't really matter. It's just for you guys. I don't want you to have to look at that. All right, so anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the anatomy of this knife. Like I said, we're looking at titanium, I believe 6AL4V titanium, and then a contoured carbon fiber inlay. We're going to talk about that. Beautiful show side pivot. I've always enjoyed QSP's show side pivot. We have satin finished S35 VN blade. I do appreciate that QSP has their logo right there, and then S35 VN on the other side, and that's pretty much it. The blade is a very simple, very straightforward, purposeful drop point blade at 120 thousandths. I mean, this is pretty much like if you looked up drop point blade on Google, this is just the most standard definition of that. It's just great. I've got no issues with it. It's a very EDC friendly blade. It does get down fairly thin behind the edge. It's going to be fantastic for literally any standard EDC task you could imagine. There's just not going to be any issues with it. It's kind of one of those, the drop points, like I've said many times, it's just one of those blades that's just kind of set up to do. It's not really going to be the best at anything, but it's going to be really good at a whole bunch of different stuff. On top of that, S35VN, one of my very favorite steels of all time. Fantastic choice, especially for the price range on this guy. It really is amazing. The blade looks good. There are no sharp edges anywhere except for, of course, the blade. All this has been nicely knocked down. You can see there, we've got horizontal lines on the flats and then vertical lines on the blade. The blade itself is sharpened nicely. There's nothing weird or wonky going on there, so that looks nice. The blade is just great. I mean, there's really nothing to complain about there. Access to the thumb stud, like I said, is fantastic. It's very easy to get in there. With this one, for those of you wanting to know how do you do the reverse flick on it, this is one of those where I use the meat of my finger and not my fingernail. Just kind of get that underneath there and fire it out. But yeah, you can do it easily. Nice, just sort of a shake shut action there. Nothing to complain about. See the stop pin there has some nice rounding, which is nice. There's nice shouldering a little bit. So additional surface contact slowing down wear over time in relationship with the lock bar. So that's nice. Everything has been knocked down on this. All corners have been knocked down. The carbon fiber looks amazing. I love how they did this inlay. It is widely shadow boxed by the frame. I don't know if you'd call that shadow boxing. It kind of looks like that. But what I like is that it's just slightly contoured. If this were flat, sorry, the angle on this, I keep wanting to push up. It's actually out this way. The contouring of the carbon fiber just gives it this extra flair that it takes it from something that could have been so bland and makes it feel, oh, that's kind of nice. It's a little different. I'm telling you, that slight contouring there just gives it this feeling, right? I mean, you'd be able to feel the transition between the titanium and carbon fiber anyway. I'm not saying that there's gaps or anything. I mean, it's just that you'd be able to feel the inlay. But what's neat is it transitions from flat to contoured, and it feels nice, and you can see it too. Like, I mean, you can see how the light is sort of bending around that curvature, and it's nice. There's only 2 handle screws on this side, a small lanyard hole that's completely out of the, actually it's a fairly large lanyard hole, out of the way of the pocket clip. Then you've got the pocket clip screw on this side, and then another screw right there. The pocket clip is super straightforward and simple, but it goes right along with the theme of the knife. I don't have a problem with it. In and out of the pocket, it's gonna fight you a little bit because of this area right here. I don't know why they curved it down like this and not, I mean, you can see here, this is meant to sort of glide over your pants, even though it's fighting the texturing on the G10. That is kind of like a tooth, and it wants to pinch the pants pocket a little bit. Now, it's not a big deal. You might have to use 2 hands sometimes. You know, if you've got really thin pant material, it's not going to be a big deal. But getting that over a denser pant material, it might require that you do that thing where you hold the pocket and then you sort of palm it in. I don't know why the pocket clip was like that. It's really odd to me that the curvature is that way, but all right, it's a minor complaint. It's not that big of a deal. It's one of those things where if you're transitioning from a knife that's got a great pocket clip to this, which I'd consider a mediocre pocket clip, it's gonna be like, that's mildly frustrating for a couple of days, and then like anything else, you'll adapt to it. So yeah, it's a little bit frustrating, but no big deal. I still don't understand why these little lines here don't sync up. They're not perfectly staggered. They're just off just a little bit. I mean, that's obviously on purpose. It's weird. It's something that catches my eye. All right, whatever. I do like the bead blasted titanium in contrast with a satin finished blade. I think that looks really nice. It's just very simple. I think what they were going for with this knife was sort of understated, but there's some nice aesthetics in places where it really matters or the knife really needed it. Because otherwise, if you could imagine, I mean, if this thing was all just bead blasted titanium, it would just get lost in a sea of sameness, right, in the knife world. But no, this kind of, it stands out a little bit, and I like it. And the couple of things that are visually confusing, I wouldn't call them eyesores, they're visually confusing, are basically, it's one of those things where I can just kind of throw my hands up and go, whatever, it doesn't really change anything, and I'm sure I'll forget about it after a little bit of carrying it. By the way, there is a perfectly seamless titanium backspacer back here. I like it like this. They could have gone gear pattern, it would have looked nice. They could have gone carbon fiber, and I think that would have looked better in contrast with the front scale. But this is fine. It's no big deal. There is a steel lock bar insert that doubles as an over-travel stop. The knife locks up at, let's give it an organic fire here, about, I don't know, 35 or so %. There is no blade play up, down, left to right. It's absolutely solid, and the knife is centered. So that's great. I've been flipping it a little bit, so perhaps, is it off just the slightest bit? When it came to me, it was pretty centered. I wonder, I'll tell you what, let's give it a shot on camera and see if it'll go right back to center if I turn it a little bit. That's very normal for a knife to be centered, and then, you know, I'd rather it come off center and I have the ability to adjust it than it be perfectly centered and be red Loctited in place. Let's give it a slight turn. Just a little bit there. Are we coming back? Are we coming back? Boy, it looks a little better. Let's give it another one. Just out of curiosity. Yeah, I'm satisfied with that. That looks pretty good. Okay, so there we go. Action's still great. Let's see if it's still doing its thing. Yeah, feels exactly the same, so no issues there. Anyways, so again, the things that I find slightly frustrating. T6 screws, that's like half the knives that I review. Hopefully we transition out of that collectively. Knife world, knife community, we just get rid of T6. And the pocket clip it has that weird tooth. That's pretty much it. So here's good news and bad news about this knife. At the time of this video, it appears to be, I found it on Smoky Mountain Knife Works. Or it was either Smoky Mountain Knife Works or White Mountain Knives. In any case, I'll include that link and any link. If I do find it available, of course, there'll be a link down there that you guys can go look at. In any case, it appears to be out of stock in places that that are widely trafficked by the knife community and that are trusted. There's some weirder places out there that I haven't really heard of yet. I don't know if they're, you know, 100%, right? But it looks like it was priced at $110. 110 bucks for bearings, titanium, carbon fiber inlay that's been contoured, S35VN, thumb stud opener. I mean, and the execution of this, I mean, I have to say, truthfully, QSP knives, they've been very underwhelming for me with like everything that they've done. It just hasn't really been anything that's like caught my eye. But this is an absolute home run. I mean, a lot of you are going to agree with me. This just looks nice. This is a nice looking knife. It's a nice EDC knife. It's straightforward. It's got that little extra flair for those of us who like that extra spice and zazz in the thing, you know, the pocket knife we're carrying, right? But at the same time, it's a functional, straightforward blade. And guess what? We didn't talk about this ergonomically. I can get my whole hand around it. And if everything falls naturally into place, I can feel the pocket clip, but I wouldn't call it a hot spot. I mean, I like this. It's comfortable. There's nothing here that really feels sharp or out of place. It's nice. And I love the feeling of the thumb stud opener. I love that I can do the reverse flick if I want to. It's just great. This is a good looking knife for a great price. Hopefully they come back in stock because I can recommend this very easily. In fact, for a lot of people who are like, yeah, I don't, you know, I'm kind of transitioning out of the standard, like the budget knife world, and I kind of want something a little bit nicer, but I'm not really into the whole flipper thing, and I just want something straightforward. This would pop way up to the top of my list for people looking for that. And that's not, it sounds specific, it's really not that specific. There's a lot of people out there who like stuff like that. This would shoot way up to the top of, you know, things that I would recommend to that person. But I think that this knife is going to be very enjoyable for a lot of people. And yeah, it's something you should check out. So like I said, either way, check out my Amazon store, but I'll try to put a link for this somewhere, even if it's a link to leads to one that's out of stock, just so you guys can go see it. Hopefully you're watching this in the future and they're back in stock and you can just ignore that part. But anyways, guys, I think that's going to be pretty much it for today's review. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.